Hi, everyone. I'm not going to really talk to what's behind me. In fact, many of you know that Cuba and the United States normalized relations today, so I'm going to talk to you that for 5 minutes. Just ignore these slides. No, I'm just joking. We're going to talk about the slides. That would be great, wouldn't it, if I could just go offhand. This is really thinking about the future. How do we think about the future? Why do we think about the future in the way that we do think about it? Why do we have different narratives about the future? Well, why do we think about the future in terms of everyday? Well, why didn't we think that eventually in the future smoking would not be seen as, something healthily to do, for instance? Or why do we necessarily think about the future as being something that we have today's problems, but we need tomorrow's solutions? Where we think distinctly about the way that we're going to change something. We're going to change our behavior by, this is from Amazon, this is a photo from Amazon actually. We're going to change our behavior based on the way that we think about the future. And one thing that's become very present in my own research, and I'll talk about my own research at the end, is really the idea that culture matters when we talk about the future. What we expect from the future. And what we think about in terms of innovation, what we think about in terms of entrepreneurialism, the things that we think about in terms of whether we're optimistic or pessimistic people. This has a big impact on the way that we think about the future. And of course, why do we think about the future at all? Well, in many cases, it's because we're particularly interested in risk. And for those of us, and I have to say, I've been a fan of science fiction really all my life, and I suggest, for anyone know when the first science fiction novel was produced? 1608, in fact. And what was particularly interesting, this is Skype, actually. What was particularly interesting about that novel in 1608 is the way that it thought about the future. It was thinking about, this hasn't caught on. It was thinking about the future distinctly in terms of who can talk to us, where we can go to, and whether or not time matters. And we very much understand this in terms of time and space. But in many cases, the way that we think about future now has this very dystopic quality to it. And what it really means in terms of, how we understand the future as being somehow very industrial, very technological, very, very controlled, but yet chaotic at the same time. And this relationship between the chaotic, the challenging, the technical, the industrial, and so on is really fascinating to me. Really fascinating because you get senses like this, that in fact this was our world, but somehow things went wrong. Something didn't quite work out the way that it was supposed to. That in fact technology took us in a direction, but in the end that direction didn't work out at all. And what I found particularly interesting, you may recognize this from Blade Runner, is that what was particularly important about Blade Runner is that the machines themselves were gaining a soul when humans themselves were losing it. And that's the distinction that you really get in that case about what's wrong with the way that we think about history to where we can even imagine that we lose our souls and they become implanted within something future, something other. Now, the way that we think about the future obviously is really getting mixed up in terms of what we imagine the dystopic versus the optimistic. And steampunk really encapsulates that really well. In many cases, it's the historical something that was good, but at the same time, it's the something that really kind of challenges the future, something that we've really kind of taken hold of. That in fact, we do have power over our future in some way or another, and it's going to be nasty, and it may be brutish, and it may be short, but it's something that we are going to do about it. Now, this is The Gunslinger, which is Stephen King novels, and some of you may recognize have read the novels. And what was particularly interesting in this case is how history and the future really link to one another. Yeah, and very much in thinking about, these lightsabers. Why would you need these lightsabers in the future where space and time becomes so much less important? And of course, you need Jedi powers to really kind of figure it out. And this is where, in a sense, the relationship between the future, the history, the way that we think about the relationship between these two altogether is really wrapped up in this idea that your utopia is my dystopia. Thank you very much.